What is the perfect time for you to sell a stock? Not only is it one of the most important questions that you need to answer as an investor, it is one of the most common questions that I get under what feels like every single video that I do. And it is important because it is going to determine mostly whether you are going to make money or lose money, because you have to buy something and then sell it to get those gains. But also, let's say that a stock is down. This is going to be the thing that is going to determine whether those losses are going to be major or if it's going to be something that is very small and that you can move on from, because you have to sell it at a loss, right? It is going to determine whether you are going to have a tax bill or not, and how big that tax bill could be. There are a lot of things that go into when and whether or not you should sell. So what are the 3 or 4 things that you should look at before you should sell, and what goes into that decision? Let's go ahead and break it down. There are 3 major things that I look at when I determine whether or not I'm going to sell a stock, and one bonus thing that I'm going to give you. So you definitely want to stay tuned to that bonus point here as well. The first thing, and I've talked about this when it comes to Chipotle, and remember, you want to tailor all these things to your practice, right, to your portfolio and what it is that you want to do for your, how you do, or what it is that you want to do for your investing philosophy. So first thing is this: is there a material change in the company, in the stock, in the industry that you are investing in? So for me, that is a change in CEO, that's a major change in the product, or a major change in the industry. So let's say if there is a law, right, that says that electric vehicles are now illegal. You cannot make electric vehicles anymore. If that were the case, I'm like, all right, well, I can invest in Tesla anymore or something like that. And that's just an example that is obviously not a real thing, at least not at this point in time, nor is it something that I anticipate. But that is a major serious thing that would hurt the company that I was investing in. If I truly believe in the CEO of a certain company and that CEO leaves, and I truly believe that the success of that company was wrapped up in that person, then that to me would determine whether or not I would want to leave. A part of that in my decision-making process, that material change, is also whether or not I have made money in that company too, and whether or not I feel like I've made gains. So in my case, I really want to emphasize this, in my case, I was already up 20% in Chipotle. I'm like, hey, the CEO is leaving. I'm not entirely sure where the company is going to go from here, but hey, I've had my fun. I've made my money. The CEO's leaving. I'll take my gains. Okay, I don't have to be greedy and see where this goes. I'm okay taking a 20% gain. The company could go up 400% more from here. If it does, great. But if it doesn't, fine, right? I got my 20%. I didn't lose money by doing so. So that is something that I tend to look at. Is there a material change? Is there something happening where I invest in the company for X, Y, and Z, and then a year later, 2 years later, those things are no longer the case? You don't have those advantages anymore. You don't have those products. You don't have those ingredients anymore. Then this is not the same company I invested in. And in this case, that is what happened. We talked a little bit about Warren Buffett and why he invested in Apple and all the things that were, why he sold nearly half. The ingredients back then, the company was cheap at that time. They had a whole bunch of advantages at that time. That wasn't the case. The company is not cheap anymore. They don't have the exact same advantages. Therefore, he was likely to have sold, and that is something that he did. So is there a material change? That's the first thing, one of the first things that I look at. Number 2 is, did you hit your profit or loss target? This is perhaps one of the most important things that I don't see beginner investors truly look at. This is the one where I really start to see both good and bad in the comments often, very, very often, where I see people say, hey, look, I'm up 50%, I'm down 20%, I lost $20, should I sell now? Well, here's the thing. I don't know what your target was or what your goal was. How much were you trying to make here? Right? If you were, and I also don't know how much you were investing either, right? If you told me you invested $1,000 and you lost 20, should you sell? No, probably not, right? What is $20 to 1,000? It's not that big a deal, right? To me, Maybe for you, it might be, right? This is, again, tailor this to your personal preference and what you're trying to do with your portfolio, right? So, again, tailor to what you're looking for. But to me, if I lost $20 and I invest $1,000, I'm probably not going to panic. But again, what was your target? So to me, what I am looking at is anytime that I'm investing, I'm always kind of marking or anchoring my experience to what the stock market does in that year. Okay, in that year, I'm also anchoring it to what I know the stock market does on average. So on average, after inflation, we normally say the stock market is going to perform anywhere between 7 to 10% a year. So when I say I made 20% on Chipotle, I'm thinking, okay, that's good. And when I tell you guys on any stock on this channel, I say it did X amount in the last, 6 months, and X amount in the last, year, right? So I give you that range. And a lot of times, I also will say, this is what the stock market did, this is what this stock did, to give you that difference. Because if it did exactly what the S&P 500 did, why would I take the extra risk investing in something that did worse than the entire stock market? That doesn't make sense to me, right? I want to invest in something that did better than the S&P 500. So if I'm looking at something and it didn't hit the target of beating the S&P 500, then I don't know if I would continue taking on that risk. So if I'm investing in something like Chipotle and you lose your CEO and you're not performing as well as the S&P 500, then that's going to lead me to say, all right, well, the S&P 500 was up, and I'm guessing here, I don't have the numbers in front of me. If the S&P 500, and obviously the numbers are changing right now, but if the S&P 500 was up 16% or so so far this year, and Chipotle was up roughly 20, and it's only a 4% gap between the two, and you lost your CEO, that tells me, hey, you're not doing that much better than the entire stock market over the last 6 months or so, maybe 8 months-ish, and you lost your CEO. That's a sell sign to me. That is a sell sign. Now, if I back up further, yes, Chipotle over a year is up 40%, but you still lost your CEO. That's a material change. So of the two out of the three, those are two sell flags for me. So that to me says, all right, for what I'm trying to do, I can sell and move on to something else that meets all of my buying criteria. So those are the things that I'm looking for. Do you have a material change? And then do you hit the buy and sell target? So for me, my target is, are you beating the S&P 500 over those ranges? And are you doing so in a way where it makes that risk worth the reward? And a 4%, what they call a delta, right? A 4% jump over the S&P 500 isn't really worth it for me. When we talked about a lot of those tech stocks, especially last year, and those AI stocks, it was, 200% or 50% greater than the S&P 500. Yeah, that was worth it. That was definitely worth it. But 4%, that's not a big enough gap for me. That's not a big enough lead for me. Also, if I'm trying to make money faster and I'm trying to trade, you guys have seen me do this, especially a few years ago, and especially inside the members only. I will say, hey, look, if this stock hits X amount of dollars, right? If I make $100 on this trade, if the stock hits $300, this is what I'm going to get out. If I lose and the stock comes down to $100, this is where I'm going to get out. I will set those targets so I don't have to guess and wait and hope. I know exactly, it hits this, I hit sell. If it comes down to this, I'll go ahead and hit sell. I did an entire video on Cash App that showed you guys what the buy and sell orders could do automatically for you on how to get in and out of those certain trades. If you want to know exactly how those work, you can check out this video here. And this is a feature that is on many other apps as well. So you definitely want to go and check those out. So have those buy and sell targets, have those goals in mind before you jump into those stocks. The next thing that I also look at is the schedule. So let's say that there is a stock out there that has the same CEO, it hasn't hit a profit and loss target perhaps, but for me, I have a schedule, June and December. That is when I come back and reevaluate, I didn't say sell, reevaluate whether or not I'm going to keep a stock or not. So come December for me, this is when I come back and say, all right, let's just say Nike. Nike has not done well. So Nike has not had a material change at this point in time. Let's say Nike is bad, but it's not bad enough for me to sell just yet. I'll come back in December and say, all right, look, now I'm going to reevaluate this. I'm going to compare it to the S&P 500. That is what my bar is. You can have your own bar, and I'll compare it to other shoe companies, Decker Outdoors, or whatever else is out there, and then I'll say whether or not I feel like selling, or compare it to whatever bar it is that you want to compare it to. Those are the things that I am personally looking at, but I have my own schedule. There are other times where I can compare any company to another one that's doing even better. Let's say if I'm comparing two healthcare stocks or two tech stocks, I'm looking at, let's say, Microsoft and Google, and say one is doing way better than the other, or Ford and GM, for example, one is doing way better than the other. I'm selling Ford, I'm buying GM because GM is doing 50% better, or something like that. I'm just throwing examples out there. I don't know which one is doing better or worse. I'm not investing in either one of them at this point in time. But just giving you guys an idea, I'm just looking at, hey, this is my time to reevaluate my portfolio and see which one is going to do better. This is just my scheduled time to do so, regardless of how much money I made or how much money I lost. There have been times for me where I will just come back at the end of the year in December and say, look, this is my schedule to sell some stocks, and then just reevaluate, because it's the end of the year. I've had a run. I think something is going to happen in 2025 or 2026. I'm going to sell and position myself for the next thing. And the reason why I will do that is because I will need the money to move in. I don't have an unlimited sum of money, right? So I'll sell something that has done well and move that to what I think is going to be the next thing. So for example, we're in an election year now. Depending on who wins, depending on what they think is going to happen to the economy. An example of this was the infrastructure bill, right? So when we knew that was going to happen, I could have said, all right, well, it's June. I think the infrastructure bill is going to come. I can sell some stocks that have done well for me, or I can sell stock that has not done well for me because of my schedule, and start to sell some things and get ready to buy stocks that I think are going to benefit from the infrastructure bill. I can sell some stocks based on my schedule to get ready for what I think is going to happen due to the CHIPS Act or something like that, which are things we did talk about. So I can look at my schedule. I can say, or I can look at the company itself and say, based on material changes, I may want to sell, or based on my profit target, these are the things I may want to sell. But there is something that you may want to consider, really two things. I said one bonus thing in the beginning, I'm going to actually give you two. Two other things you do want to consider. Before you do, make sure you check out my free class on how you can build your first six-figure investing plan. I talk about what accounts you're going to need to get there, how to invest, working backwards. So starting at what you're going to need for those six figures and working backwards in terms of what you need to invest in, how much you need to invest, and everything in between. Totally free, comes about 45 minutes. You want to make sure that you sign up using this link below, and also the links in the description. All right, so we've talked about the top three things. Those are the three things that you're going to need to kind of figure out what to sell, but there are two things you want to consider as you're doing that. The first one is taxes. When you sell, you may, keyword is may, have to pay taxes. What is going to determine whether or not you're going to pay taxes? There's a whole video on walking you through a calculator that's going to tell you exactly what your taxes could be, but it really is going to depend on what type of account you have. If it is an IRA, that's an individual retirement account, or 401k, you really don't have to worry about taxes too much unless you're 59 and a half, and it depends on the type of account there. That's number one. Also, it's going to depend on whether you're married or not and how much you sold. If you sold $5 or $10 worth of stock, it's not something I would really worry about. Okay, now if you sold $50,000 or $60,000 worth of stock and you made money, that's a different story. Also, if you sold a stock and lost money, it ain't something she's really worried about. Okay, a lot of people who sold and made $25 in Bitcoin get real upset about the potential of paying taxes without really realizing that you probably are not going to owe anything. Okay, so definitely check out that video, check out that calculator, and see if you would even owe anything to begin with based on how much you sold. So that is a consideration, just something that you do want to be aware of. The other thing that can have me to sell, or may have me to sell certain things, is if I am trying to rebalance my portfolio. So what that really means, and we've talked about this in previous videos too, is if I own a bunch of different stocks, they could be at different levels. $1,000 here, $10,000 here, and just, think of it like a bar chart, right? Well, I could trim some stocks, right? An example of this, and we talked about this many times, of all the money that I had in Nvidia. I can trim, which I had done and showed you guys how I did that and talked a lot about this before the stock kind of had its hiccup about a few weeks ago, where I would sell just tiny bits of Nvidia to bring it down just a little bit and take that money and invest it in different places. So that's another way, but again, that's not selling the entire thing. That's more so trimming. But a trim is technically a sell. Generally, I do this on the schedule part of that. So that was the third point of the top 3 that I had mentioned. But that is something that's out there as well, which may, depending on what type of account you have, retirement or non-retirement, can fall into that tax category. But those are the things that you absolutely should pay attention to and should factor in to whether or not you are going to sell. You don't want to fall into the fear factor. Oh my God, something happened, I lost money, I need to sell. Just because you lose money doesn't mean you automatically have to sell. I know it feels like you should because you lost money. Y'all saw what happened in 2022. There were a lot of people who bought in 2022, and those are the stocks that are doing quite well right now. Okay, we saw what happened in 2020. I just sent out an email earlier today that talked about 2020, and when the stock market was down, everybody started to sell their 401k and thought everything was going to end. And rightfully so, it felt like things were going to end back then. However, we all forget that the stock market was up 18% in the year 2020. It was actually up 18% in the year 2020. Okay, so just because the stock market is down, because a stock is down, is not an automatic reason as to sell. You should go back to what I said about number 2 and have that profit and loss goal. So if it hits a certain point for you, then it would make sense for you to sell. But you have to set that price target. I can't set it for you. You have to set it for you. If you want to know other investing habits and research things that you should have before you buy a stock and after you buy a stock and other stocks that you may want to consider buying, you want to check out these videos right here.